the beautiful suffering of Prince Myshkin when goodness meets a broken world. What if I told you that being too good, too kind, too forgiving could ruin your life? That the very things we associate with virtue might actually be the seeds of our destruction? Sounds insane, right? But that's exactly the paradox Dostoevsky throws in our faces with The Idiot. In this video, we're going to dive into a terrifying idea: that pure goodness, unprotected and unfiltered, is not just ineffective in the real world, it might actually be a curse. And by the end, you'll be asking yourself, is it better to be good or to be real? Let's begin with Prince Myshkin, the so-called idiot. He's not an idiot because he lacks intelligence. In fact, he's perceptive, empathetic, and deeply aware of human suffering. He's called an idiot because he doesn't play the game. Society has rules, spoken and unspoken. We manipulate. We hide our true feelings. We prioritize success over sincerity. But Myshkin? He walks into the world like a lamb among wolves, armed with nothing but compassion, honesty, and a heart that forgives even the unforgivable. And instead of being rewarded, he's torn apart. Why?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Because the world doesn't know what to do with someone who won't fight back. Dostoevsky is not writing a fairy tale where the good man wins. He's writing a philosophical grenade and throwing it at our assumptions. We think that goodness is the highest ideal. We tell children to be good, to be kind, to love unconditionally. But what happens when that goodness is placed in a world that's built on power, pride, and ego? Myshkin doesn't just fail, he collapses. He loves Nastasya Filippovna, a woman torn apart by shame and trauma. He sees her pain and offers her salvation, but she can't accept it, because real goodness doesn't flatter us. It confronts us. It reflects our wounds back to us, and that's unbearable. Have you ever tried to help someone who didn't want to be helped? Have you ever offered love to someone who believed themselves unworthy of it, and watched them destroy that love because it hurt too much to hold? That's the tragedy of Myshkin. His goodness isn't weak, it's too strong. So strong that it shines a light on everyone else's darkness. And instead of being drawn to it, they recoil. Because being seen in full light, that's terrifying. So Dostoevsky asks us, is goodness practical? Is it even desirable in a world like ours? Or is it a dangerous ideal, a beautiful but tragic illusion? When we meet someone like Myshkin, we're inspired, but we're also disturbed. Because suddenly, we see how far we are from that level of purity. And that shame either transforms us or destroys us. Now let's slow down. Think about this. Have you ever felt punished for being good? Maybe at work you refused to gossip and got excluded. Maybe in a relationship you forgave too much and got walked on. Maybe with a friend you gave more than you got and they left anyway. Why does that happen? Why isn't goodness reciprocated? Could it be that pure goodness actually threatens people? Not because it's bad, but because it demands a higher standard. This is the paradox Dostoevsky forces us to confront. That goodness, true and radical, does not integrate easily with the world. It doesn't win elections. It doesn't dominate boardrooms. It doesn't trend on social media. Because true goodness doesn't sell. It doesn't entertain. It doesn't manipulate. It just is. And that makes it profoundly lonely. And here's the kicker. Dostoevsky doesn't let us escape this tension with a neat ending. Myshkin doesn't ride off into the sunset. He ends up broken. His love fails. His mind collapses. And we're left staring at an empty shell of a man who once tried to save everyone. So what does that mean for us? Should we abandon goodness? Harden our hearts? Become cynical? Or should we redefine what it means to be good in a fallen world? That's the haunting beauty of The Idiot. It doesn't give us answers. It gives us a mirror. And in that mirror, we see ourselves, our compromises, our fears, our longing to be loved without being exposed. Myshkin is not a saint to be worshipped. He's a warning, That goodness without wisdom is not enough. That purity without boundaries will be crucified. And yet, we still need people like him. Because without them, we forget what humanity could be. So I leave you with this. What kind of goodness do you practice? Is it the kind that comforts others, or the kind that challenges them? Is your goodness strong enough to survive betrayal, rejection, misunderstanding? Or is it a mask you wear to avoid conflict? Co-goodness is not easy. It's not soft. It's not safe. It's a fire. And if you burn too brightly in the wrong place, you'll be extinguished. Why the world hates innocence, the hidden violence of society's expectations. Let's go deeper. If Prince Myshkin's tragedy is that his goodness could not survive the brutality of the world, then we must ask, why does the world punish innocence? And the answer, as Dostoevsky subtly but devastatingly reveals, is that innocence is a threat to the systems we've built to protect our illusions. Innocence is raw. It's unfiltered. It sees things as they are, not as we pretend them to be. And in a world that runs on appearances, that kind of perception is dangerous. Myshkin walks into a room and doesn't play the social game. He doesn't flatter egos or manipulate dynamics. He simply sees people, truly sees them, and responds with compassion. But people don't want to be seen, especially not in their weakness. They want to be admired, envied, feared. Innocence strips away the masks. And when the masks fall, people strike back. You see, society has expectations, silent rules that dictate how we behave, how we speak, what we value. Power is respected. Status is envied. Wealth is worshipped. But innocence doesn't care about any of that. It doesn't recognize hierarchies. In fact, it exposes their absurdity. Myshkin treats a fallen woman like a queen and a rich man like a child. He offers forgiveness where punishment is expected. He calls out cruelty not with anger, but with sorrow. And that's exactly why people hate him. Because he reminds them of a moral standard they've abandoned. He becomes a living judgment, not because he condemns, but because he loves too deeply. This is the hidden violence of normal society. It doesn't tolerate what it cannot control, and innocence by nature is uncontrollable. It doesn't calculate outcomes. It doesn't ask, what's in it for me? It loves without strategy, and that kind of love terrifies people, because it exposes the transactional nature of their own relationships. Imagine someone who gives without expectation, who listens without needing to reply, who holds your pain without trying to fix it. That kind of presence is unsettling. It forces you to confront your own defensiveness, your own selfishness, your own inability to do the same. Have you ever resented someone just for being too kind, too patient, too forgiving? If you're honest, maybe yes. And that resentment is key to understanding why goodness often gets crushed. Myshkin is like a mirror. He doesn't fight back, doesn't retaliate, doesn't even defend his own dignity. And in doing so, he reflects everyone's inner emptiness. People feel exposed around him, not because he's trying to judge them, but because they realize how far they've drifted from anything pure. This is why Nastasya Filippovna can't accept his love. She's been used, shamed, degraded. And when a man comes along who sees her as sacred, who offers her not passion but compassion, she self-destructs. Because to accept that love, she'd have to believe she's worthy of it. And shame doesn't allow that. How many of us push away love because we don't think we deserve it? How many of us sabotage relationships because we'd rather destroy something beautiful than risk being exposed? Dostoevsky isn't just telling a story. He's revealing a psychological truth, that the human soul, when wounded, often prefers the familiar pain of darkness to the unfamiliar light of healing. Myshkin doesn't fail because he's weak. He fails because the world isn't ready for him. And maybe that's the real tragedy. That society, in its hunger for control, rejects the only thing that could save it. We chase power. We celebrate cynicism. We glorify independence. But deep down, we're starving for connection, for radical forgiveness, for unearned grace. And when someone offers it, we panic. Because grace feels like a lie when we've spent our whole lives working to be good enough. So here's the question. Can innocence survive adulthood? Or is it something we're forced to abandon to function in the world? At what point did we learn that being kind makes you weak? That being vulnerable makes you a target? That being honest is naive? And what did we lose when we embraced those beliefs? Imagine a world where Myshkin's way of being wasn't seen as foolish, but as revolutionary. Where gentleness was power, where compassion was currency, where forgiveness wasn't rare, but expected. That world may sound impossible, but maybe that's because we've accepted too many lies about human nature. Maybe our cynicism isn't truth, it's trauma. Dostoevsky doesn't tell us to become like Myshkin. He warns us what happens when someone does. But in that warning, there's also a call to protect the innocent parts of ourselves and to stop punishing them in others. The world may not reward innocence, but that doesn't mean it's worthless. In fact, it may be the only thing that still holds us together. So I'll ask you this: where in your life have you betrayed your own innocence to fit in? What part of you still believes in love without condition, in truth without fear, in goodness without agenda? And what would it mean to live from that place, even if it costs you everything? The final betrayal, why we abandon the good and worship the strong. Why do we so often betray the good in favor of the powerful? Why do we follow those who dominate rather than those who heal? Dostoevsky's The Idiot is not just a portrait of a pure soul crushed by a corrupt world. It's a diagnosis of the human condition. Prince Myshkin is the embodiment of a love that asks for nothing in return, a goodness that doesn't filter through ego or pride. And yet, again and again, the people around him turn instead toward the charismatic, the manipulative, the self-assured. They gravitate toward Rogozhin, a darker figure driven by obsession, jealousy, and passion. Why? Because power, even destructive power, feels real to us. It feels grounded in the world. But goodness? That feels like a dream. And we have been trained to distrust dreams. This is the final betrayal Dostoevsky wants us to see, not just the betrayal of Myshkin by others, but the betrayal we commit against ourselves. We betray our longing for tenderness, for spiritual connection, for grace, and we replace it with the pursuit of strength, status, and certainty. We are drawn to those who appear invulnerable because we fear our own vulnerability. We want leaders who seem to have no cracks, no doubts, no softness, because then we don't have to face our own. But what if that craving for strength is actually a mask for deep insecurity? What if our worship of the strong is just fear in disguise? Think about your own life. How often have you admired someone not because they were kind, but because they were confident? Not because they were healing, but because they got results. In The Idiot, Nastasya Filippovna vacillates between Myshkin and Rogozhin, between grace and destruction. And her final choice isn't about reason, it's about the gravitational pull of shame. She chooses Rogozhin because his passion confirms her self-loathing. Myshkin offers redemption, but she can't believe in it, and so she runs from it. That's the tragedy. Not that she was unloved, but that she couldn't accept love that didn't match her story of herself. And this isn't just her story, it's ours too. How many times have we chosen what hurts us over what heals us, simply because it felt familiar? Because healing requires us to rewrite the story we've told about who we are, and that's terrifying. There's a dark insight here that Dostoevsky forces us to face. People will often destroy what could save them. Not because they're evil, but because they're afraid. Afraid to be truly seen. Afraid to be changed. Afraid to live without the armor they've worn for so long. And when someone like Myshkin comes along, someone who doesn't play by the rules, who loves without condition, who forgives without being asked, it breaks the system. And systems don't like to be broken, so they crush the thing that threatens their structure. That's why goodness is a curse. Not because it is wrong, but because it is too right for a world that has normalized distortion. And yet, Dostoevsky still leaves us with a haunting hope. Myshkin may fall. He may be misunderstood, rejected, and destroyed, but he is not erased. His presence leaves a mark on everyone he touches. Even in their confusion, even in their betrayal, something in them remembers. Deep down, they know what he was. And maybe, just maybe, that memory plants a seed that will grow in silence, a seed that might one day bloom into a deeper understanding of love, of truth, of what it means to be fully human. So the final question is this: are you willing to carry that seed in your own life? Even if no one sees it, even if it isolates you, even if it costs you your pride? Because the world doesn't need more strength. It needs more courage to be good in a world that calls goodness foolish. Thank you for coming on this journey. If this video stirred something in you, don't ignore it. Sit with it, reflect, and ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to become, even if the world never rewards me for it? Because maybe the true test of goodness is whether we still choose it, even when it costs us everything. Because maybe, just maybe, that's what makes it real.